People can do mental work for you or on you, where you start thinking thoughts that are not yours. And that is one of the reasons why I highly recommend that you know yourself. That is the reason why they say know thyself, because when you start thinking thoughts that are not yours, you could...
My mind is trying to kill me, and if I do nothing, I am going to die, guys. Every day I get up, my mind tells me to go and jump off a building. It tells me to go and overdose on pills. It tells me to go and harm myself.
Tragedy struck on Tuesday evening when 26-year-old Tyra Spalding, a former Miss Universe Jamaica 2023 contestant, was found unalived at her home. Reports say the discovery was made around 6:55 p.m., and police are treating it as a suspected case of self-unaliving.
Where do these thoughts come from? I don't know.
Tyra wasn't just known for her beauty and grace on the stage. She was also a strong voice for mental health awareness and self-unaliving prevention. Sadly, in recent weeks, videos circulated showing her speaking openly about her own struggles, admitting to severe battles with depression and self-unaliving thoughts. Her passing has left Jamaica heartbroken, with friends, supporters, and fellow contestants expressing shock and grief online. Tyra's story is a painful reminder that even those who advocate for others may be silently fighting their own wars. If you or someone you know is struggling, please remember you're not alone. In Jamaica, you can call the Mental Health and Self-Unaliving Prevention Helpline at 888-NEWLIFE or dial 119 in an emergency. Rest in peace.
Now, as much as I tried to stay away from the spiritual side of what happened to the Miss Universe Jamaica, Tyra Spalding, rest in peace to her, and my heart goes out to her family. And I've already said my piece when it comes to the mental health, and especially in the Black community, and how people are not taken seriously when it comes to stuff like that. I also want to address something else that did not sit well with me, right? When it came to when she was explaining about what was going on with her, what she was going through, she made a comment that really stuck with me. And she said that she was basically battling her own mind. So she basically had to decide between the lesser evil every day, right? So she said her mind was basically telling her to do things to herself, but she also was thinking, I don't want to die, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Because the way this girl was talking, she was begging for help. And when it comes to the spiritual world, things can really affect you. And I have to say that I don't want to speak too much on this, but I lost two people that were very close to me due to something similar to what I'm about to talk about. And I'm not going to say any names or anything like that, but I will tell you for a fact that a lot of the times your thoughts are not your thoughts, right? And that is why you have to actually know your thoughts, so you can differentiate between when it's your thoughts and when it's not your thoughts. Because there's such a thing, especially when it comes to like the spiritual world, witchcraft and all that stuff. Not to say that something happened due to witchcraft, but you can tell the difference. And like I said, if there's something that you feel is wrong with you and you feel like, you know, you cannot battle it by yourself, go and get some help. I highly recommend that. But also, when she said the comment about how her mind was basically trying to unalive her and that she probably couldn't tell the difference, your mind, 80% of the things that you think on a daily basis are not your thoughts, are outside entities, outside people that are projecting their thoughts into you, which then make you think certain things. So for example, you didn't notice that your nose was too big until somebody pointed it out, and now all of a sudden that's the only thing you can think about. That's not your thoughts, that's somebody else's thought, because the whole time your nose has been on your face, you never thought anything was wrong with your nose, right? So when she said that her mind was basically trying to unalive her, it reminded me of a story of someone that actually was unalived because of something spiritual. And the thing that was being done or being said, which led us to believe that it was something a little bit deeper than just a simple, freak accident, is because that person was also complaining, not necessarily complaining, but definitely saying that they were thinking certain thoughts that they didn't believe were theirs, right? How does mental work? in my opinion, people can do mental work for you or on you, where you start thinking thoughts that are not yours. And that is one of the reasons why I highly recommend that you know yourself. That is the reason why they say know thyself, because when you start thinking thoughts that are not yours, you could stop yourself and say, you know what, I would never think that, so that is not me. But if you're already going through stuff and then someone or something, you know, decide to enter and start, you know, telling you, becoming louder than your actual thoughts, you can fall victim into it. And not to say that everyone is able to, you know, differentiate what's their thoughts and what's not their thoughts, but when you do know yourself, you can differentiate that. And especially if the work that is being done on you is strong, it might be hard, but you can also combat that. Because I remember when the person was saying that they were driving and they actually had to call a friend because they know that was not their thoughts. They kept having thoughts while they're driving, not just a little car, I'm talking about big car. They kept thinking that they should open the door and throw themselves out the window. Open the door and throw themselves out the window. Open the door, throw yourself out the window. But that person realized that that wasn't their thought, so they end up calling someone to stay on the phone with them the whole time so they can come back that thought. And sure enough, that particular thing didn't work that day, but ended up unaliving them another day. Something else. They ended up saying, you know what, that person's thoughts is very strong. They have a hold of their thoughts, not necessarily because he did, but it's because he kept trying to distract himself from those thoughts that kept coming to him. And a lot of time, in my opinion, that's how depression works. This is just in my opinion, you know. If you don't have something that you're passionate about and you're doing that's keeping you busy, thoughts are going to infiltrate your mind. And now if you have things to keep you busy that you're interested in, because I can't say that, you know, all of us don't go through a period of depression, right? But when it comes to that, there are things that you can do, like get some help and or talk to a friend and or do things that will distract you from your everyday life. Right? So instead of you like sitting in the house all day, now you have all the time in the world to think of all these things that you could be doing. Not to say that this could have saved this girl, because I know people like to jump the gun and, you know, take one thing, take a little clip and run with it. That's not what I'm saying, right? But I believe that, for example, she even talked about not having a job, you know, then applying for OnlyFans at one point, and, you know, there was something going on that she just could not, like, she ended up succumbing to her own thoughts, right? But when the person that was close to me was saying that, they were able to basically combat that, right? And I don't want to give a whole story because it's something that's very serious, and 2 people ended up losing their life, and one of those 2 people was someone that was in my family. Well, both of them were in my family, but this one person was near and dear to my heart. And when they ended up losing their life, it's because it started off with the mind control, right? You say mind control, people think, oh, you know, Illuminati mind control, but people can do things to you where they can literally control your thoughts. They can do mental work. I talk about mental work all the time. They can do mental work where they will change the way that you think, or they will infiltrate your mind and, you know, drop little hints here. Oh, you should take this knife. I don't want to use that as an example because, you know, YouTube is very sensitive. But take this and do that to yourself. You're thinking that. Because I remember one time, now that I'm saying that, I actually remember a couple times, and I think maybe they were just children thoughts because I never actually thought of doing that for real. But I've actually entertained the thought of, while a car is driving, I should open the door and jump out or roll out. You know, things that you see in movies. But this person's situation was a lot more serious, where they were the driver of a big company car. And they were thinking about throwing themselves out while the car is moving, while in big traffic. They were thinking about doing that. But then, you know, like I said, everything turned out that he was being worked on. They were being worked on to the point where they didn't take it so serious. They didn't take it seriously because, of course, they're Christians, and they didn't, even though they knew things were happening. They knew things were happening, but they were trying to pray the problem away until they both ended up not here with us anymore. So this is something that I'm telling you, like, this is real true story from family, things that people close to me, things that have happened, where once I heard her say that, And when I talk about this all the time, you know, in Jamaica they do a lot of obia, and not to say some obia that was done, you know, because a lot of times that could also be mental health, but a lot of times it's not mental health, right? It's more deeper than that. And when you really scratch the surface and get to the true bottom of everything, you know, it could be mental health, it could be something else, but definitely this is really bringing back memories of actually making me relive everything that I went through a few months ago, a year ago or so. You know, it's just something that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something that, you know, I want to bring to people's attention. Not to say, just like I said, not to say that, you know, what happened didn't really happen. Of course it happened. And not to say, you know, that she could have been saved. I don't know, but she could have been saved if people were actually listening to her and actually seeking some help for the young girl, and also maybe, you know, try to get her distracted, you know, doing other things that she enjoy, and or, you know, try to get her out of this funk. Because I believe if she had a group of friends that she could call to talk to, you know, that would, for that moment, it would distract her from those thoughts. Because at the end of the day, it's almost like a battle. Like, you know how they say good and evil, you constantly, we all are constantly battling our own self. So we're also always constantly battling that good evil, that good angel and the bad angel. And you have to decide, okay, those thoughts are not mine, where are they coming from? And sometimes you have to just sever the ties, burn away whatever it is. But when you know yourself, you will know certain thoughts are not yours, and you shouldn't entertain those thoughts, right? And that's all I'm saying. So please, I hope someone out there understands that if you are going through something, please seek some help, but also know when your thoughts are yours and when they're not yours. Okay? Have a lovely day. Good night.